Hello again. Welcome to another Wednesday requested readings. Tonight is my request. Found a copy of Just So Stories, which was one of my favorite books when I was a small person learning how to read. And so we are going to read those with you guys tonight. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 stories. Hi, Cheryl. So we will, I don't know how many we'll do. They're very short, and so we'll start with my favorite, and then you guys can jump in. Look up the story titles if you don't know them already. They're kind of great. And so we are going to read a few of those today. Question mark, question mark. It's really me, I promise. So yeah, we are going to start with at least a couple tonight. If we get done with those couple and still have some time, we'll read a couple more, and we'll just do this for the following few Wednesdays, and just kind of see what we want to do. There are illustrations, so we may go very like a first grade, and I will show you guys the illustrations because they are very cool. And so yeah, so I am very excited that you guys are here. As you know, you guys have been my tether to sanity. I'm sorry to put that kind of burden on you, but this is something that I have to look forward to every week, and I love hanging out with you guys. So we'll just continue to do this. They can lift whatever quarantines people can go out in the world, but we will hang out together on Wednesdays, and we'll just try to make it a thing. I have some exciting news for you guys. I did get contacted over the last few days to see if I was still interested in being a part of Danny and the Deep Blue Sea this fall. So I, of course, said yes. We'll see if there is theater space that we are allowed to use. It is only a 2-person cast, so we can observe some social distancing. And some of you will know Sean Orlowski, some of you will not. But trust me when I say you need to see this guy act. He is amazing. He is a wonderful person to work with. I am certain that he already has the script memorized. And so I will be doing a lot of catching up to get to where he is. But it will be a blast, and I am looking forward to it. So we may have to tailor this around rehearsal schedule, but with only 2 of us, we may be able to tailor rehearsal schedule around this, which would be awesome. So looks like the guys have gotten here. Very excited to see you guys. Thank you for being here. And I know you're going to be setting up here in a little bit, so when you need to bug out, just know that I will see you again at 8 o'clock. So we are going to start tonight with my favorite story. And my favorite story from this book is The Elephant's Child, also known as How the Elephant Got His Trunk. This book has a very cute introduction, so we'll start there, and then we will get into our story for tonight. There was a time, many years ago, when things were quite different than they are today. Elephants had big fat noses instead of long trunks. Leopards did not have spots. Camels did not have humps. There was even a time when there was no alphabet. But then along came Just So Stories by Rudyard Kipling, and nothing has ever been the same. And that is very true. So let's dive in with The Elephant's Child. Now I apologize. There are some foreign words, and so I will do my best with pronunciation, but there are voices just for you, Jason. So I hope you guys enjoy this as much as I do. Have a little sip of wine. I ask that you guys join, and this is going to be fun. In the high and far off times, the elephant, O best beloved, had no trunk. He had only a blackish, bulgy nose, as big as a boot, that he could wriggle about from side to side, but he couldn't pick things up with it. But there was one elephant, a new elephant, an elephant's child, who was full of satiable curiosity, and that means he asked ever so many questions. And he lived in Africa, and he filled all Africa with his satiable curiosities. He asked his tall aunt, the ostrich, why her tail feathers grew just so, and his tall aunt, the ostrich, spanked him with her hard, hard claw. He asked his tall uncle, the giraffe, what made his skin spotty, and his tall uncle, the giraffe, spanked him with his hard, hard hoof. And still he was full of satiable curiosity. He asked his broad aunt, the hippopotamus, why her eyes were red, and his broad aunt, the hippopotamus, spanked him with her broad, broad hoof. And he asked his hairy uncle, the baboon, why melons tasted just so, and his hairy uncle, the baboon, spanked him with his hairy, hairy paw. And still he was full of satiable curiosity. He asked questions about everything that he saw, or heard, or felt, or smelt, or touched, and all his uncles and aunts spanked him. And still he was full of satiable curiosity. One fine morning, in the middle of the procession of the equinoxes, this satiable elephant's child asked a fine new question that he had never asked before. He asked, what does the crocodile have for dinner? Then everyone said, hush, in a loud and dreadful tone, and then they spanked him immediately and directly, without stopping, for a long time. By and by, when that was finished, he came upon Kolo Kolo Bird, sitting in the middle of a wait-a-bit thorn bush, and he said, my father has spanked me, and all my aunts and uncles have spanked me for my satiable curiosity, and I still want to know what the crocodile has for dinner. Then Kolo Kolo Bird, with a mournful cry, said, go to the banks of the great gray-green, greasy Limpopo River, all set about with fever trees, and find out. That very next morning, when there was nothing left of the equinoxes, because the procession had proceeded according to precedent, this satiable elephant's child took 100 pounds of bananas, the little short red kind, and 100 pounds of sugar cane, the long purple kind, and 17 melons, the greeny crackly kind, and said to all his dear families, goodbye. I'm going to the great gray green greasy Limpopo River, all set about with fever trees to find out what the crocodile has for dinner. And they all spanked him once more for luck, though he asked them most politely to stop. Then he went away, a little warm, but not at all astonished, eating melons and throwing the rind about, because he could not pick it up. He went from Grahamstown to Kimberley, and from Kimberley to Kama's country, and from Kama's country he went east by north, eating melons all the time, till at last he came to the banks of the great gray-green, greasy Limpopo River, all set about with fever trees, precisely as Kolo Kolo Bird had said. Now you must know and understand, O best beloved, that till that very week and day and hour and minute, this satiable elephant's child had never seen a crocodile. It did not know what one was like. It was all his satiable curiosity. The first thing that he found was a bicolored python rock snake curled around a rock. Excuse me, said the elephant's child most politely, but have you seen such a thing as a crocodile in these promiscuous parts? Have I seen a crocodile? Said the bicolored python rock snake in a voice of dreadful scorn. What will you ask me next? Excuse me, said the elephant's child, but could you kindly tell me what he has for dinner? Then the bicolored python rock snake uncoiled himself very quickly from the rock and spanked the elephant's child with his scalesome, flailsome tail. That is odd, said the elephant's child, because my father and my mother and my uncle and my aunt, not to mention my other aunt, the hippopotamus, and my other uncle, the baboon, have all spanked me for my satiable curiosity, and I suppose this is the same thing. So he said goodbye very politely to the bicolored python rock snake and helped to coil him up on the rock again, and went on, a little warm, but not at all astonished, eating melons and throwing the rind about, because he could not pick it up, till he trod on what he thought was a log of wood at the very edge of the great gray-green, greasy Limpopo River, all set about with fever trees. But it was really the crocodile, O best beloved, and the crocodile winked one eye, like this. "Excuse me," said the elephant's child most politely, "but do you happen to have seen a crocodile in these promiscuous parts?" Then the crocodile winked the other eye, and lifted half his tail out of the mud, and the elephant's child stepped back most politely, because he did not wish to be spanked again. "Come hither, little one," said the crocodile. "Why do you ask such things?" "Excuse me," said the elephant's child most politely, "but my father has spanked me, my mother has spanked me, not to mention my tall aunt the ostrich, and my tall uncle the giraffe, who can kick ever so hard, and my as well as my broad aunt the hippopotamus, and my hairy uncle the baboon, and including the bicolored python rock snake with his scalesome, flailsome tail just at the bank, who spanks harder than any of them. And so, if it's all quite the same to you, I don't want to be spanked anymore." "Come hither, little one," said the crocodile, "for I am the crocodile." And he wept crocodile tears to show it was quite true. Then the elephant's child grew all breathless and panted and kneeled down on the bank and said, "You are the very person I have been looking for all these long days. Will you please tell me what you have for dinner?" "Come hither, little one," said the crocodile, "and I'll whisper." Then the elephant's child put his head down close to the crocodile's musky, tusky mouth, and the crocodile caught him up by his little nose, which up to that very week, day, hour, and minute had been no bigger than a boot, though much more useful. "I think," said the crocodile, and he said it between his teeth like this, "I think today I will begin with elephant's child." At this, O best beloved, the elephant's child was much annoyed, and he said, speaking through his nose like this, "Duck-goo, you are hurting me." Then the bicolored python rock snake scuffled down from the bank and said, "My young friend, if you do not now, immediately and instantly, pull as hard as ever you can, it is my opinion that your acquaintance in the large patterned leather ulster," and by this he meant the crocodile, "will jerk you into yonder limpid stream before you can say Jack Robinson." This is the way bicolored python rock snakes always talk. Then the elephant's child sat back on his little haunches and pulled and pulled and pulled, and his nose began to stretch, and the crocodile floundered into the water, making it all creamy with great sweeps of his tail, and he pulled and pulled and pulled, and the elephant's child's nose kept on stretching, and the elephant's child spread all his little four legs and pulled and pulled and pulled, and his nose kept on stretching. And the crocodile threshed his tail like an oar, and he pulled and pulled and pulled. And at each pull, the elephant's child's nose grew longer and longer, and it hurt him hideous. Then the elephant's child felt his legs slipping, and he said through his nose, which was now nearly 5 feet long, "This is too much for me." Then the bicolored python rock snake came down from the bank and knotted himself in a double clove hitch round the elephant's child's hind legs and said, "Rash and inexperienced traveler, we will now seriously devote ourselves to a little high tension, because if we do not, it is my impression that yonder self-propelling man of war with the armor-plated upper deck," and by this, O best beloved, he meant the crocodile, "will permanently vitiate your future career." This is the way all bicolored python rock snakes always talk. So he pulled, and the elephant's child pulled, and the crocodile pulled. But the elephant's child and the bicolored python rock snake pulled hardest. And at last the crocodile let go of the elephant's child's nose with a plop that you could hear all the way up and down the Limpopo. Then the elephant's child sat down most hard and sudden. But first he was careful to say thank you to the bicolored python rock snake. And next he was kind to his poor pulled nose and wrapped it all up in cool banana leaves and hung it in the great gray-green, greasy Limpopo to cool. "What are you doing that for?" said the bicolored python rock snake. "Excuse me," said the elephant's child, "but my nose is badly out of shape, and I am waiting for it to shrink." "Then you'll have to wait a long time," said the bicolored python rock snake. "Some people do not know what is good for them." The elephant's child sat there for 3 days waiting for his nose to shrink, but it never grew any shorter, and besides, it made him squint. For, oh, best beloved, you will see and understand that the crocodile had pulled it out into a really, truly trunk, same as all elephants have today. At the end of the 3rd day, a fly came and stung him on the shoulder. And before he knew what he was doing, he lifted up his trunk and hit that fly dead with the end of it. "Vantage number 1, said the bicolored python rock snake. "You couldn't have done that with a mere smear nose. Try and eat a little now." Before he thought what he was doing, the elephant's child put out his trunk and plucked a large bundle of grass, dusted it clean against his forelegs, and stuffed it into his own mouth. "Vantage number 2, said the bicolored python rock snake. "You couldn't have done that with a mere smear nose. Don't you think the sun is very hot here?" "It is," said the elephant's child, and before he thought what he was doing, he slooped up a great sloop of mud from the banks of the great gray-green, greasy Limpopo and slapped it on his head, where it made a cool, sloopy, sloppy mud cap all trickly behind his ears. "Vantage number 3, said the bicolored python rock snake. "You couldn't have done that with a mere smear nose. Now, how do you feel about being spanked again?" "Excuse me," said the elephant's child, "but I should not like it at all." "How would you like to spank somebody?" said the bicolored python rock snake. "I should like it very much indeed," said the elephant's child. "Well," said the bicolored python rock snake, "you will find that new nose of yours very useful to spank people with." "Thank you," said the elephant's child. "I'll remember that, and now I think I'll go home to all my dear families and try." So the elephant's child went home across Africa, frisking and whisking his trunk. When he wanted fruit to eat, he pulled fruit down from a tree, instead of waiting for it to fall as he used to do. When he wanted grass, he plucked grass up from the ground, instead of going on his knees as he used to do. When the flies bit him, he broke off the branch of a tree and used it as a fly whisk. And he made himself a new, cool, slushy, squishy mud cap whenever the sun was hot. When he felt lonely walking through Africa, he sang to himself down his trunk, and the noise was louder than several brass bands. He went especially out of his way to find a broad hippopotamus. She was no relation of his. And he spanked her very hard, to make sure that the bicolored python rock snake had spoken the truth about his new trunk. The rest of the time he picked up the melon rinds that he had dropped on his way to the Limpopo, for he was a tidy pachyderm. One dark evening he came back to all his dear families, and he coiled up his trunk and said, "How do you do?" They were very glad to see him, and immediately said, "Come here and be spanked for your satiable curiosity." "Pooh," said the elephant's child. "I don't think you peoples know anything about spanking, but I do, and I'll show you." Then he uncurled his trunk and knocked 2 of his dear brothers head over heels. "Oh, bananas," said they. "Where did you learn that trick, and what have you done to your nose?" "I got a new one from the crocodile on the banks of the great gray-green, greasy Limpopo River," said the elephant's child. "I asked him what he had for dinner, and he gave me this to keep." It looks very ugly, said his hairy uncle the baboon. It does, said the elephant's child, but it's very useful. And he picked up his hairy uncle the baboon by one hairy leg and hove him into a hornet's nest. Then that bad elephant's child spanked all his dear families for a long time, till they were very warm and greatly astonished. He pulled out his tall ostrich ant's tail feathers, and he caught his tall uncle the giraffe by the hind leg and dragged him through a thorn bush. And he shouted at his broad aunt the hippopotamus and blew bubbles into her ear whenever she was sleeping in the water after meals. But he never let anyone touch Cola Cola Bird. At last things grew so exciting that his dear families went off one by one in a hurry to the banks of the great gray green, greasy Limpopo River, all set about with fever trees, to borrow new noses from the crocodile. When they came back, nobody spanked anybody anymore. And ever since that day, O best beloved, all the elephants you will ever see, besides all those that you won't, have trunks precisely like the trunk of the satiable elephant's child. I hope you guys enjoyed that. It's so good. All of these stories have a little bit of a moral to them if you are unfamiliar. So we will go through a couple more. This is a good one. How are you guys doing, by the way? I'm sorry, we just kind of jumped right in. I was so excited to get into this. So I hope you're doing well. Thank you, Cheryl. Joe, it is good to see you here tonight. I hope you can kind of get a feel for what I've been doing and put together something for you. Stories that make you feel good, or monologues from shows that you've always wanted to showcase and just needed someplace to do it. This has been great for me. So I hope maybe it will help you, or you can just come hang out with me on Wednesdays and Saturdays with the whole group. Got a bunch of them. And I just love having all of you guys here. So the next one we are going to do, I'm going to get just another little sip. Not really for the wine, but for the reading. Okay, it's for the wine. Before Max says anything about that. All right. So, oh, good. John Oak Dalton is here, joined. Yay. If you guys would share this, because I've had people say, oh, I forgot, where can I watch it? So if you guys will share this, I would appreciate it, and we'll just see how big this group can get. So the next story we are going to read is How the Whale Got His Throat. In the sea, once upon a time, oh my best beloved, there was a whale, and he ate fishes. He ate the starfish and the garfish, and the crab and the dab, and the plaice and the dace, and the skate and his mate, and the mackerel and the pickerel, and the really truly twirly whirly eel. All the fishes he could find in all the sea he ate with his mouth. So, till at last there was only one small fish left in all the sea, and he was a small 'stute fish, and he swam a little behind the whale's right ear, so as to be out of harm's way. Then the whale stood up on his tail and said, I'm hungry. And the small 'stute fish said in his small 'stute voice, Noble and generous cetacean, have you ever tasted man? No, said the whale. What's it like? Nice, said the small 'stute fish. Nice, but nubbly. Then fetch me some, said the whale, and he made the sea froth up with his tail. One at a time is enough, said the 'stute fish. If you swim to latitude 50 north, longitude 40 west, that is magic. You will find, sitting on a raft in the middle of the sea, with nothing on but a pair of blue canvas breeches, a pair of suspenders. You must not forget the suspenders, best beloved, and a jackknife. One shipwrecked mariner, who, it is only fair to tell you, is a man of infinite resource and sagacity. So the whale swam and swam to latitude 50 north, longitude 40 west, as fast as he could swim, and on a raft, in the middle of the sea, with nothing to wear except a pair of blue canvas breeches, a pair of suspenders. You must particularly remember the suspenders, best beloved. And a jackknife. He found one single solitary shipwrecked mariner, trailing his toes in the water. He had his mummy's leave to paddle, or else he would have never done it, because he was a man of infinite resource and sagacity. Then the whale opened his mouth back and back and back till it nearly touched his tail, and he swallowed the shipwrecked mariner. And the raft he was sitting on, and his blue canvas breeches, and the suspenders, which you must not forget, and the jackknife, he swallowed them all down into his warm, dark inside cupboards, and then he smacked his lips and turned around 3 times on his tail. But as soon as the mariner, who was a man of infinite resource and sagacity, found himself truly inside the whale's warm, dark inside cupboards, he stumped and he jumped and he thumped and he bumped and he pranced and he danced and he banged and he clanged and he hit and he bit and he leaped and he creeped and he prowled and he howled and he hopped and he dropped and he cried and he sighed and he crawled and he bawled and he stepped and he leapt and he danced hornpipes where he shouldn't, and the whale felt most unhappy indeed. Have you forgotten about the suspenders? So he said to the stute fish, "This man is very nubbly, and besides he's making me hiccup. What shall I do?" "Tell him to come out," said the stute fish. So the whale called down his own throat to the shipwrecked mariner, "Come out and behave yourself. I've got the hiccups." "Nay, nay," said the mariner, "not so, but far otherwise. Take me to my natal shore and the white cliffs of Albion, and I'll think about it." And he began to dance more than ever. "You'd better take him home," said the stute fish to the whale. "I ought to have warned you that he is a man of infinite resource and sagacity." So the whale swam and swam and swam with both flippers and his tail as hard as he could for the hiccups, and at last he saw the mariner's natal shore and the white cliffs of Albion. And he rushed halfway up the beach and opened his mouth wide and wide and wide and said, "Change here for Winchester, Ashuelot, Nashua, Keene, and stations on the Fitchburg Road." And just as he said Fitch, the mariner walked out of his mouth. But while the whale had been swimming, the mariner, who was indeed a person of infinite resource and sagacity, had taken his jackknife and cut up the raft into a little square grating, all running crisscross, and he had tied it firm with his suspenders. Now you know why I told you not to forget the suspenders. And he dragged that grating good and tight into the whale's throat, and there it stuck. Then he recited the following sloka, which, as you have not heard it, I will now proceed to relate. "By means of a grating I have stopped your eating." For the mariner, he was also a Hibernian, and he stepped out on the shingle and went home to his mother, who had given him leave to trail his toes in the water, and he married and lived happily ever afterward. So did the whale. But from that day on, the grating in his throat, which he could neither cough up nor swallow down, prevented him eating anything except very, very small fish. And that is the reason why whales nowadays never eat men or boys or little girls. The small stute fish went and hid himself in the mud under the doorsills of the equator. He was afraid that the whale might be angry with him. The sailor took the jackknife home. He was wearing the blue canvas breeches when he walked out on the shingle. The suspenders were left behind, you see, to tie the grating with. And that is the end of that tale. What do you guys think? I like it. They're cute. They're short. They're fun. Where are we at? We're 7:30. Nice. We have time. Okay, so let's see. We still got 4 people with us. So we will pick one more story tonight. We can read either How the Camel Got His Hump or The Crab That Played with the Sea. I'm going to take a drink. You guys put it up there, whichever one you want. And yeah, we'll see what's happening. You guys, this is so fun. I love you guys so much. I'm just having a blast. I hope you guys are too. Yeah, this is super fun for me, guys. So I hope you have enjoyed it. I know I keep saying that, but I really, really do. I wouldn't be doing this if you guys weren't watching. So thank you for that. And as I say, if you can share it, great. At 8 o'clock after this is Hen's short stories. His are much spookier than mine, but they are family friendly. So if you guys are watching with kids, watching me do this, hang out, and then flip over to Hen and watch him. He's got a lot of folks that love to comment on what he's reading, and his stuff has been a lot of fun to listen to. So yeah, when we are done here, you guys flip over there. It'll be awesome. So it looks like you guys do not really have a preference. So let's take a look here. Let's do How the Camel Got His Hump. Now this is the next tale, and it tells how the camel got his big hump. In the beginning of years, when the world was just so new and all the animals were just beginning to work for man, there was a camel, and he lived in the middle of a howling desert because he did not want to work. And besides, he was a howler himself. So he ate sticks and thorns and tamarisks and milkweed and prickles, most excruciating idle. And when anyone spoke to him, he said, "Humph," just "humph," and no more. Presently, the horse came to him on Monday morning with a saddle on his back and a bit in his mouth, and said, "Camel, oh camel, come out and trot like the rest of us." "Humph," said the camel, and the horse went away and told the man. Presently, the dog came to him with a stick in his mouth and said, "Camel, oh camel, come and fetch and carry like the rest of us." "Humph," said the camel, and the dog went away and told the man. Presently, the ox came to him with a yoke on his neck and said, "Camel, oh camel, come and plow like the rest of us." "Humph," said the camel, and the ox went away and told the man. At the end of the day, the man called the horse and the dog and the ox together, and he said, "Three, oh three, I'm very sorry for you, with the world so new and all, but that humph thing in the desert can't work, or he would have been here by now. So I'm going to leave him alone, and you must work double time to make up for it." That made the 3 very angry, with the world so new and all. And they held a palaver, and an indaba, and a punchiette, and a powwow on the edge of the desert. And the camel came chewing milkweed most excruciating idle, and laughed at them. Then he said, "Humph," and went away again. Presently there came along the Jinn in charge of all deserts, rolling in a cloud of dust. Jinns always travel that way because it is magic. And he stopped to palaver and powwow with the 3. "Jinn of all deserts," said the horse, "is it right for anyone to be idle with the world so new and all?" "Cert not," said the Jinn. "Well," said the horse, "there's a thing in the middle of your howling desert, and he's a howler himself, with a long neck and long legs, and he hasn't done a stroke of work since Monday morning. He won't trot." "Phew," said the Jinn, whistling. "That's my camel, for all the gold in Arabia. What does he say about it?" "He says, 'Humph,'" said the dog, and he won't fetch and carry. Does he say anything else? Only hump, and he won't plow, said the ox. Very good, said the Jinn. I'll hump him if you will kindly wait a minute. The Jinn rolled himself up in his dust cloak, and he took a bearing across the desert, and found the camel most excruciatingly idle, looking at his own reflection in a pool of water. My long and bubbling friend, said the Jinn, what is this I hear of you doing no work with the world so new and all? Humph, said the camel. The Jinn sat down with his chin in his hand and began to think a great magic, while the camel looked at his own reflection in the pool of water. You've given the 3 extra work ever since Monday morning, all on account of your excruciating idleness, said the Jinn, and he went on thinking magics with his chin in his hand. Humph, said the camel. I shouldn't say that again if I were you, said the Jinn. You might say it once too often. Bubbles, I want you to work. And the camel said, humph, again, but no sooner had he said it than he saw his back, that he was so proud of, puffing up into a great lolloping hump. Do you see that? Said the Jinn. That's your very own hump that you've brought upon your very own self by not working. Today is Thursday, and you've done no work since Monday, when the work began. Now you are going to work. How can I, said the camel, with this hump on my back? That's made a purpose, said the Jinn, all because you missed those 3 days. You will be able to work now for 3 days without eating, because you can live on your hump. And don't you ever say I never did anything for you. Come out of the desert and go to the 3 and behave. Hump yourself. And the camel humped himself, hump and all, and went away to join the 3. And from that day to this, the camel always wears a hump. We call it hump now, not to hurt his feelings. But he has never yet caught up with the 3 days that he missed at the beginning of the world, and he has never yet learned how to behave. Oh, there is a cute little poem after that one. The camel's hump is an ugly lump, which well you may see at the zoo, but uglier yet is the hump we get from having too little to do. Kiddies and grown-ups too hoo-hoo if we haven't enough to do hoo-hoo. We get the hump, the camellious hump, the hump that is black and blue. We climb out of bed with a frowsly head and a snarly, yarly voice. We shiver and scowl, and we grunt and we growl at our bath and our boots and our toys. And there ought to be a corner for me, and I know there is one for you, when we get the hump, the camellious hump, the hump that is black and blue. The cure for this ill is not to sit still or frowst with a book by the fire, but to take a large hoe and a shovel also, and dig till you gently perspire. And then you will find that the sun and the wind and the Jinn of the garden too have lifted the hump, the horrible hump, the hump that is black and blue. I get it as well as you, if I haven't enough to do. We all get the hump, camellious hump, kitties and grown-ups too. You guys, I'm just loving this. I hope you guys are. Let's see. What did Jason say? Oh, Mac. Much better than that last Poe ratiocination story. That sucker was tough. Oh. Dupin is great, but Marie Roget is not. What is not? Get? Like elephant trunks and camel humps. Yeah, that was a rough one, but I warned you guys that was going to be a rough one. Oh, all right. 7:39. Shall we do one more? I think so. Let's see. Oh, no. I'll start with that one next time. All right. Here is a good one. Hump Day hump stories and poems are sweet. Yes, they are. Oh, that's right. What day is it? What day is it? Come on, somebody put the get. All right. Maybe, it won't let me. All right, one of you guys is going to have to find me the Geico camel, put it here. It may end up the cover picture for when I share this on Insta, which would be hilarious. If people watched it there simply because the Geico camel was the page picture, that would be awesome. Okay, so we're going to do one more because it is beautiful and you guys are awesome. So yes, we are going to do the beginning of armadillos. All right. This, O best beloved, is another story of the high and far off times. In the very middle of those times was a stickly prickly hedgehog, and he lived on the banks of the turbid Amazon, eating shelly snails and things. And he had a friend, a slow, solid tortoise, who lived on the banks of the turbid Amazon, eating green lettuces and things. And so that was all right, best beloved, do you see? But also, and at the same time, in those high and far off times, there was a painted jaguar. And he lived on the banks of the turbid Amazon too. He ate everything he could catch. When he could not catch deer or monkeys, he would eat frogs and beetles. And when he could not catch frogs and beetles, he went to his mother jaguar, and she told him how to eat hedgehogs and tortoises. She said to him ever so many times, graciously waving her tail, "My son, when you find a hedgehog, you must drop him into the water, and then he will uncoil. And when you catch a tortoise, you must scoop him out of his shell with your paw." And so that was all right, best beloved. One beautiful night on the banks of the turbid Amazon, Painted Jaguar found Stickly Prickly Hedgehog and Slow Solid Tortoise sitting under the trunk of a fallen tree. They could not run away, and so Stickly Prickly curled himself up into a ball, because he was a hedgehog. And Slow Solid Tortoise drew in his head and feet into his shell as far as they would go, because he was a tortoise. And so that was all right, best beloved. Do you see? Now attend to me, said the Painted Jaguar, because this is very important. My mother said that when I meet a hedgehog, I am to drop him into the water, and then he will uncoil. And when I meet a tortoise, I am to scoop him out of his shell with my paw. Now, which of you is hedgehog and which is tortoise? Because to save my spots, I can't tell. Are you sure of what your mommy told you? Said Stickly Prickly Hedgehog. Are you quite sure? Perhaps she said that when you uncoil a tortoise, you must scoop him out of the water with a scoop. And when you paw a hedgehog, you must drop him on the shell. Are you sure of what your mummy told you? Said the slow and solid tortoise. Are you quite sure? Perhaps she said that when you water a hedgehog, you must drop him into your paw, and when you meet a tortoise, you must shell him till he uncoils. I don't think it was all like that, said Painted Jaguar, but he felt a little puzzled. But please say it again more distinctly. When you scoop water with your paw, you uncoil it with a hedgehog, said Stickly Prickly. Remember that, because it's important. But, said the tortoise, when you paw your meat, you drop it into a tortoise with a scoop. Why can't you understand? You're making my spots ache, said Painted Jaguar, and besides, I didn't want your advice at all. All I wanted to know which of you is hedgehog and which is tortoise. I shan't tell you, said Stickly Prickly, but you can scoop me out of my shell if you like. Aha, said Painted Tortoise. Or, excuse me, Painted Jaguar. I've seen painted turtles, but I don't know about a painted tortoise. Here we go, McBride. Thanks. You are making my spots ache, said Painted Jaguar. Oh, we're down here now. I apologize. I got distracted. Now I know you're a tortoise. You thought I wouldn't. Now I will. Painted Jaguar darted out his patty paw just as Stickly Prickly curled himself up. And of course, Jaguar's patty paw was just filled with prickles. Worse than that, he knocked Stickly Prickly away and away into the woods and the bushes, where it was too dark to find him. Then he put his patty paw into his mouth, and of course the prickles hurt him worse than ever. As soon as he could speak, he said, "Now I know he isn't tortoise at all, but..." And then he scratched his head with his unprickly paw. "How do I know that this other is tortoise?" "But I am tortoise," said Slow and Solid. "Your mother was quite right. She said that you were to scoop me out of my shell with your paw. Begin." "You didn't say she said that a minute ago," said Painted Jaguar, sucking the prickles out of his patty paw. "You said that she said something quite different." "Well, suppose you say that I said that she said something quite different. I don't see that it makes any difference, because if she said what you said, I said she said. It's just the same as if I said what she said. She said. On the other hand, if you think she said that you were to uncoil me with a scoop instead of pawing me into drops with a shell, I can't help that, can I?" "But you said you wanted to be scooped out of your shell with my paw," said Painted Jaguar. "If you'll think again, you'll find that I didn't say anything of the kind. I said that your mother said that you were to scoop me out of my shell," said Slow and Solid. "And what will happen if I do?" said the Jaguar, most sniffly and most cautious. "I don't know, because I've never been scooped out of my shell before. But I tell you truly, if you want to see me swim away, you've only got to drop me into the water." "I don't believe it," said Painted Jaguar. "You've mixed up all the things my mother told me to do with the things that you asked me whether I was sure that she didn't say, till I don't know whether I'm on my head or on my painted tail. And now you come and tell me something I can understand, and it makes me more mixy than before. My mother told me that I was to drop one of you two into the water. And as you seem so anxious to be dropped, I think you don't want to be dropped. So jump into the turbid Amazon and be quick about it." "I warn you that your mummy won't be pleased. Don't tell her I didn't tell you," said Slow Solid. "If you say another word about what my mother said," the Jaguar answered, but he had not finished the sentence before Slow and Solid quietly dived into the turbid Amazon, swam underwater for a long way, and came out on the bank where Stickly Prickly was waiting for him. "That was a very narrow escape," said Stickly Prickly. "I don't like Painted Jaguar. What did you tell him that you were?" "I told him truthfully that I was a truthful tortoise, but he wouldn't believe it, and he made me jump into the river to see if I was. And I was. And he is surprised. Now he's gone to tell his mummy. Listen to him." They could hear Painted Jaguar roaring up and down among the trees and the bushes by the side of the turbid Amazon till his mummy came. Son, son, said his mother ever so many times, graciously waving her tail. What have you been doing that you shouldn't have done? I tried to scoop something that said it wanted to be scooped out of its shell with my paw, and my paw is full of prickles, said Painted Jaguar. Son, son, said his mother ever so many times, graciously waving her tail. By the prickles in your patty paw, I see that it must have been a hedgehog. You should have dropped him into the water. I did that to the other thing, and he said he was a tortoise, and I didn't believe him, and it was quite true. And he has dived under the turbid Amazon, and he won't come up again, and I haven't anything at all to eat. And I think we had better find lodging somewhere else. They are too clever on the turbid Amazon for poor me. Son, son, said his mother ever so many times, graciously waving her tail. Now attend to me and remember what I say. A hedgehog curls himself up into a ball, and his prickles stick out every which way at once. By this you may know the hedgehog. I don't like this old lady one little bit, said Stickly Prickly under the shadow of a large leaf. I wonder what else she knows. A tortoise can't curl himself up, Mother Jaguar went on ever so many times, graciously waving her tail. He only draws his head and legs into his shell. By this you may know the tortoise. I don't like this old lady at all, said Slow Solid Tortoise. Even Painted Jaguar can't forget those directions. It's a great pity that you can't swim, Stickly Prickly. Don't talk to me, said Stickly Prickly. Just think how much better it would be if you could curl up. This is a mess. Listen to Painted Jaguar. Painted Jaguar was sitting on the banks of the turbid Amazon, sucking prickles out of his paws and saying to himself, Can't curl but can swim. Slow, Solid, that's him. Curls up but can't swim. Stickly Prickly, that's him. Oh, this was longer than I thought it was, guys, but that's okay. You'll never forget that this month of Sundays, said Stickly Prickly. Hold up my chin, Slow and Solid. I'm going to try to learn to swim. It may be useful. Excellent, said Slow and Solid, and he held up Stickly Prickly's chin, while Stickly Prickly kicked in the waters of the turbid Amazon. You'll make a fine swimmer yet, said Slow and Solid. Now, if you can unlace my back plates a little, I'll see what I can do towards curling up. It may be useful. Stickly Prickly helped to unlace Tortoise's back plates, so that by twisting and straining, Slow and Solid actually managed to curl up a tiddly wee bit. Excellent, said Stickly Prickly, but I shouldn't do any more just now. It's making you black in the face. Kindly lead me into the water once again, and I'll practice that side stroke which you say is so easy. And so Stickly Prickly practiced, and Slow Solid swam alongside. Excellent, said Slow and Solid. A little more practice will make you a regular whale. Now, if I may trouble you to unlace my back and front plates 2 holes more, I'll try that fascinating bend that you say is so easy. Won't Painted Jaguar be surprised? Excellent, said Stickly Prickly, all wet from the turbid Amazon. I declare I shouldn't know you from one of my own family. Excuse me. I know. Love the tortoise. No, I will not, Jason, because the tortoise apparently is related to Eeyore, and I just heard it myself. So, yeah. No. But thank you for the idea. I always appreciate your feedback. We'll call it that. Okay.
2 holes, I think you said. A little more expression, please, and don't grunt quite so much, or Painted Jaguar may hear us. When you've finished, I want to try that long dive which you say is so easy. Won't Painted Jaguar be surprised?
And so Stickly Prickly dived, and Slow and Solid dived alongside. Excellent, said Slow and Solid. A little more attention to holding your breath, and you will be able to keep house at the bottom of the turbid Amazon. Now I'll try that exercise of wrapping my hind legs round my ears, which you say is so peculiarly comfortable. Won't Painted Jaguar be surprised?
Excellent, said Stickly Prickly, but it's straining your back plates a little. They are all overlapping now instead of lying side by side.
Oh, that's the result of exercise, said Slow and Solid. I've noticed that your prickles seem to be melting into one another, and that you're growing to look a little rather more like a pine cone and less like a chestnut burr than you used to.
Am I? Said Stickly Prickly. That comes from my soaking in the water. Oh, won't Painted Jaguar be surprised?
They went on with their exercises, each helping the other, till morning came, and when the sun was high, they rested and dried themselves. Then they saw that they were both of them quite different from what they had been. Stickly Prickly, said the tortoise after breakfast, I am not what I was yesterday, but I think that I may yet amuse Painted Jaguar.
That was the very thing I was thinking just now, said Stickly Prickly. I think scales are a tremendous improvement on Prickles, to say nothing of being able to swim. Oh, won't Painted Jaguar be surprised? Let's go and find him.
By and by they found Painted Jaguar, still nursing his paddy paw that had been hurt the night before. He was so astonished that he fell 3 times backward over his own painted tail without stopping.
Good morning, said Stickly Prickly. And how is your dear gracious mummy this morning?
She is quite well, thank you, said Painted Jaguar, but you must forgive me if I do not at this precise moment recall your name.
That's unkind of you, said Stickly Prickly, seeing that this time yesterday you tried to scoop me out of my shell with your paw.
But you hadn't any shell. It was all prickles, said Painted Jaguar. I know it was. Just look at my paw. You told me to drop into the turbid Amazon and be drowned, said Slow Solid. Why are you so rude and forgetful today?
Don't you remember what your mother told you? Said Stickly Prickly. Can't curl but can swim. Stickly Prickly, that's him. Curls up but can't swim. Slow Solid, that's him.
Then they both curled themselves up and rolled round and round Painted Jaguar until his eyes truly turned cartwheels in his head. Then he went to fetch his mother. Mother, he said, there are 2 new animals in the woods today, and the one that you said couldn't swim, swims. And the one that you said couldn't curl up, curls, and they've both gone shares in their prickles. And I think because both of them are scaly all over, instead of one being smooth and the other very prickly. And besides that, they are rolling round and round in circles, and I don't feel comfy. Son, said Mother Jaguar ever so many times, graciously waving her tail. A hedgehog is a hedgehog, and can't be anything but a hedgehog. And a tortoise is a tortoise, and can never be anything else. But it isn't a hedgehog, and it isn't a tortoise. It's a little bit of both, and I don't know its proper name. Nonsense, said Mother Jaguar. Everything has its proper name. I should call it armadillo till I found out the real one, and I should leave it alone. So Painted Jaguar did as he was told, especially about leaving them alone. But the curious thing is that from that day to this, O best beloved,
No one on the banks of the turbid Amazon has ever called Stickly Prickly and Slow Solid anything except armadillo. There are hedgehogs and tortoises in other places, of course. There are some in my garden. But the real old and clever kind, with their scales lying lippity-lappity over one over the other, like pinecone scales, that lived on the banks of the turbid Amazon in the high and far-off days, are always called armadillos because they were so clever. So that's all right, best beloved. Do you see? Oh, all right, guys. That was 1 full hour. So I will leave you for now. I love you guys. I will see you on Saturday at 3 o'clock. Thank you again for being here with me, and have a wonderful evening. Bye, guys.